Oh, my dear, pull up a chair and let me tell you a story that still tugs at my heartstrings, even now. I'm Ingrid, a 42-year-old single mom from a quiet corner of Bergen, Norway, where the fjords whisper secrets and the rain never seems to stop. I've spent my life raising my daughter, Eline, on my own after her father passed too young. She's my everything, bright, ambitious, with that fiery spirit that reminds me of my younger self. So when she met Lars, this charming architect from Oslo, and they got engaged, I thought the stars had finally aligned for us. Little did I know that wedding day was never meant to be, and what unfolded would change us both forever. It all started last spring when the cherry blossoms were blooming along the harbor. Eline was 25, fresh out of university with a job in sustainable design, something that makes a mother's heart swell with pride in a country like ours, where we cherish the earth and our fjords. Lars seemed perfect, tall, with that easy smile and a steady job. He proposed during a midnight sun hike in the mountains, and Eline called me in tears of joy. "Mom, he's the one," she said. "We're getting married in August right here in Bergen, with the sea as our witness." I threw myself into the planning like it was my own second chance at happiness. We booked the old stone church on the hillside, the one with views of the water that shimmer like diamonds on a clear day. I scrimped from my teaching salary to cover the flowers, wild Nordic blooms in whites and blues, and the reception at a cozy hall overlooking the fjord. Eline wanted it simple yet elegant, just like her, a white lace dress inspired by traditional bunad patterns, and a menu of fresh salmon, cloudberries, and that rich brunost cheese we Norwegians can't resist. Lars was all in, or so he said, helping with the guest list and even suggesting we invite his family from up north. But as the weeks ticked by, little things niggled at me. Lars was always on his phone, stepping away for work calls during our planning dinners. He'd laugh it off, saying it was a big project in Oslo, but his eyes would dart away, avoiding mine. I chalked it up to wedding jitters. Who doesn't get them? Eline was glowing, and I didn't want to dim that light. Still, as a mom who's navigated life's storms alone, I've learned to trust that quiet voice inside. One evening, while helping Eline pack for a weekend trip with Lars, I overheard him on the balcony. His voice was low, urgent. "I can't keep this up much longer. The kids miss you, but Eline suspects nothing." My heart stopped. Kids? What kids? I froze behind the door, my hand trembling on the knob. Lars had told us he was single, never married, no baggage. But there it was, spilling out in hushed tones, the truth he'd buried deep. I waited until they left, then did what any protective mother would. I dug. A quick search on his social media, he'd friended me early on, led to old photos buried under privacy settings but not quite hidden. There he was, smiling with a woman and two young boys, maybe 5 and 7 years old. The caption spoke of family vacations in the Lofoten Islands, dated just last year. My stomach churned. He had a whole life in Oslo, a wife, children, a home. Eline was just, what? An escape? A mistake? I didn't sleep that night. The rain pattered against my window like accusations. How could I tell her? Eline adored him. This would shatter her. But keeping silent? That would be betrayal of the worst kind. I thought back to my own losses, the husband taken by a sudden illness, the years of single parenting while teaching history to high schoolers who barely listened. I'd built our life on honesty, on facing the fjord's tempests head on. No, I couldn't let her walk into this trap. The next day, I called Lars to meet me at a cafe by the Bergen wharf, those colorful wooden buildings that have stood through centuries of storms. He arrived looking polished, but his eyes were wary. "Ingrid, what's this about?" he asked, stirring his coffee too vigorously. I laid it out calmly, my voice steady despite the rage bubbling inside. "I know about your family, Lars. The wife, the boys. How could you do this to Eline?" His face paled, the color draining like the tide pulling back. He stammered denials at first. "It's complicated, we're separated." But the photos on my phone silenced him. Turns out he wasn't separated at all. It was an affair, plain and cruel. He'd met Eline at a conference, fallen hard, but couldn't bring himself to end his marriage. "I love her," he whispered, as if that excused the lies. Love doesn't hide families, I snapped, my Norwegian pragmatism cutting through. You tell her, or I will. And the wedding, it's off. He left in a huff, promising to come clean, but I wasn't leaving it to chance. That evening, when Eline returned, I sat her down in our cozy living room, the one with the knit blankets and photos of our hikes together. Tears streamed down my face as I broke the news. She crumbled, sobbing into my arms like she did as a child after a scraped knee. How could I be so blind, Mom? She whispered. The days that followed were a blur of cancellations. The church, the caterers, the dress that now hung like a ghost in her closet. Friends and family rallied, but the whispers in our tight-knit community stung. Poor Eline, they'd say at the market. Another heartbreak. I shielded her as best I could, cooking her favorite krumkake cookies and taking long walks along the fjord paths, where the fresh air clears the mind. But here's where the story turns, my dear, because out of the ashes, we rose stronger. Eline, bless her resilient heart, didn't wallow long. I won't let this define me, she declared one rainy afternoon. Together, we turned our pain into purpose. I suggested starting a support group for women facing similar betrayals, single moms, jilted brides, anyone rebuilding after love storms. We called it Fjord Hearts, meeting weekly in a community center overlooking the water. At first, it was just us and a few friends, sharing stories over tea and lefse. But word spread, and soon women from all over Bergen joined. A 38-year-old divorcee from the oil rigs, a 50-something teacher like me who'd been ghosted after years of marriage. Eline threw herself into it, using her design skills to create a simple website and social media page. We shared tips on spotting red flags, rebuilding self-worth, even financial advice for single women in Norway's welfare system, things like alimony rights and career pivots. I became the auntie figure, offering hugs and hard-won wisdom. And me, I found my own spark again. Leading the group reminded me I wasn't just a mom, I was a survivor, capable of more than I'd imagined. A year later, Eline's thriving in her career, dating someone new, a kind soul from Trondheim who knows her whole story. And Fjord Hearts? It's grown to over 50 members, with online sessions reaching women across Scandinavia. We've even partnered with local therapists for workshops on emotional healing. As for Lars, he faded into the background, dealing with his own fallout. Last I heard, he was seeking counseling. Good for him, but far from our lives. So if you're listening and you've faced a betrayal that knocked the wind out of you, remember this. Sometimes the wedding that wasn't is the doorway to the life that was meant to be. Trust your instincts, lean on your loved ones, and rise like the Norwegian sun after a long winter night. You've got the strength inside. Now go claim it.